All right, welcome to chapter 14, which is stem and leaf propagation. So your learning targets or chapter outcomes for today are understand the biological principles of stem and leaf propagation, describe sources of plant material for stem cuttings and environmental conditions required for rooting, describe the propagation methods for leaf cuttings and rootings, list materials used to mix rooting media, explain the role of plant growth regulators in the propagation process, and identify careers related to stem and leaf propagation. So, asexual propagation, this is showing you succulents. They actually just took a leaf off of it, and this, whatever comes from this rooting is going to be just like the parent plant. It's got no new genetics. That's the key with asexual propagation. So this is a vegetative propagation. It's the starting of a new plant from existing plant material. And basically this is a fancy way of saying you're cloning. You're being the mad scientist that's cloning using just a leaf. And succulents are kind of cool. As long as you add a little bit of moisture at this point, they're going to start to sprout and then they're going to start to produce a new plant. And this big leaf here will eventually die off as this new plant tissue grows. Biological principles. You have cuttings. So cuttings, it's vegetative propagation using a piece of a leaf or a stem. They have adventitious roots, the formation, dedifferentiation, callus tissue. So the adventitious root formation is the process of roots forming from any plant part other than the root. Dedifferentiation is cell tissue in the leaf or stem has cells that regress from specialized function to a simpler state. Callus tissue is a bundle of undifferentiated cells that cover the wound and begin to initiate new cellular divisions that differentiate. And differentiation is cellular divisions that develop a specialized function form into meristematic growing regions or roots. So adventitious roots, these are preformed roots or wound-induced roots. And wound-induced, they'll develop after a cutting has been made. It's basically a direct response. So what the plant is doing is deciding like, hey, I've been cut off the regular plant. I need to figure out how to survive, so it produces roots from that wound site. Preformed roots develop naturally on stems. They are attached to the parent plant. This is actually showing you apothos. You guys have maybe seen these. These plants get super long, and you can see there's a whole bunch of roots in this container here. They're easy to propagate with preformed roots that emerge at the node. And the node you'll see there's kind of one here. They'll kind of shoot out along the stem. Basically it's another one. If you do a cutting, they'll start to grow out roots. Wound-induced roots, after a cutting is made, the direct response to a wound. The wound response, the outer layer of injured cells die. Siberian seals the wound, and then cells begin to divide and form a callus. Cells will begin to divide and initiate adventitious roots. This plant is so cool. It's mother of 1,000 tongues, and I have one of these, and these will all eventually fall off. So this is the big leaf. It's kind of hard to see in the picture, but these are all the big leaf, and this on the outer edge is all the tiny little plants growing. They'll eventually fall off that big plant. So this is that bud formation piece where that plant goes, hey, I need to make more of myself. It's a survival piece. You can do leaf cuttings that basically need to develop both roots and shoots when that happens. So very cool stuff. And this is actually an African violet. That's a really good one for leaf cutting. So stem and leaf cuttings, plant material used. You have stock plants, which should be disease-free, uniform, true to type, and fairly vigorous. So you want some healthy, what they call stock plants. Typically these are the plants where if I know like I'm having a heating issue in my greenhouse, I might move them into my classroom just for the fact that I want to keep those plants around so I can make more. If the young ones that are trying to grow die, that happens. But I want to keep my stock plants around because they are the really good ones and they're hardy. Stem and leaf cuttings, you can do hardwood, softwood, herbaceous, deciduous. Typically if they do some sort of hardwood cutting, they'll do what looks like saran wrap here. They're trying to get these plants to graft together is what they're showing you. And then leaf cutting, leaf with no stem, and there's also leaf bud cutting, which it kind of goes through here. So hardwood cuttings, they have a long shelf life. There's no specialized equipment required. You basically need a pair of clippers. It's very inexpensive and easy to use. Hardwood cuttings are ready to be cut. Wood is firm and does not bend. Leaves can be removed without tearing the bark. And then leaves have abscised, and then avoid flower buds. And this is actually a purple fig on this one. So they should be 4 inches to 30 inches in length. Kind of depends on the species you're working with. Should have at least 2 nodes. If you don't remember what nodes are, that was, I believe, chapter 9. That should have a bottom cut immediately beneath the node, and then a top cut 1/2 to 1 inch above the node. So this next one, this is showing you a hardwood cutting. There's a straight cut. Pretty self-explanatory. The mallet cut includes a short section of the stem or older wood used on harder to propagate material. This is a heel cutting in this last image. A cutting that includes a small section of older wood of a base at the base of the cutting, used on plants that are very difficult to root. So this is just showing you an example. So for propagation, you guys have seen this image before. So you should do direct fall planting, warm temperature pre-treatment. They could do some bottom heat to them, and then you'll do direct spring planting. Those are the options that you really have. And they all kind of have their benefits, and it really does depend on the plant species that you're working with. Semi-hardwood cuttings, they come from partially matured wood, broadleaf evergreens, or deciduous plants. They should be 3 inches to 6 inches in length. They're more perishable than hardwoods. They're not going to last as long. You can't just throw them into a container and leave them in a cooler for a while. You should take care of them right away. For collecting them, you should have soft new growth beginning to harden. Shoots should snap easily. Shoots with mature leaves and young small leaves is what you're looking for. They will root easily and swiftly. Should be 3 to 5 inches in length, and they are perishable, meaning they're going to, not last very long. This is a herbaceous cutting. This is what I do a lot of in the greenhouse. They can be taken from stem tips. They should be 3 to 5 inches in length. So this one's a coleus. All I did was take about a 5-inch section of the plant, cut it off there, stuck it in water, and you can see in the jar there's roots growing. All I did is stick it in water. What I would do though too is take the leaves off. Anything that's going to be below that water line will rot and stink. This is something you could definitely try this summer as your plants are growing. Leaf cuttings, you would take the leaf blade. So this one here is actually a snake plant, also called mother-in-law's tongue. This looks like some type of begonia. This one you just basically cut off, and you can see there's roots growing here. They just stuck it in soil. This one they actually do a little bit of a scar. They'll do a cut in the leaf, and that's where it kind of, at that point of damage is where it decides to start to sprout the new plant. So they're talking about these different types: leaf blade, leaf blade and petiole, limited capable plants, and then require misting or high humidity. So you have to keep misting them to keep them growing. So this is a leaf bud cutting, which is similar to leaf cuttings. They include a leaf blade, a petiole, short piece of stem with bud attached, and many available plants this way. And that is actually a lemon tree that is grown from a leaf bud cutting. Root cuttings, that's not commonly used. Pieces of the root are cut from the stalk plant. They're placed in a medium. When they say medium, they're talking about soil. It could be perlite, it could be soil, it could be anything else that you would typically grow a plant in. Covered with the medium, and then covered with plastic or glass to kind of make a little greenhouse. And they're going to try to basically maintain the correct heat for that plant. Hardening off. Hardening off is that process of acclimating a plant or getting them ready to be outside. You're going to slowly increase the amount of cool temperature and possibly wind it's going to experience. It enables those new plants to increase photosynthetic rate, absorb water, and absorb nutrients. It's also going to shorten their misting time. Doing all of these things are going to help that process of acclimatization, especially if you're working in a big greenhouse setting where it's not feasible to take everything outside. You might just turn down your heat and slowly adjust to make it be more like the environmental conditions. Rooting medium. The purpose of the rooting medium is to hold the cutting in place, provide moisture, allow gas exchange, and create a dark environment to encourage the rooting. So this is actually what they call hawk wool. And this is something you can use which does not, it doesn't really disintegrate. It's just going to stay in this little block form. It's really good in the hydroponics units too. Works quite well and very inexpensive. So plant growth regulators. Plants by nature have hormones. They have phytohormones, which are chemicals that are present in small amounts and regulate plant growth and other functions. These hormones, they all have their own purpose as to how they make them grow, and the next slides are going to go through these. So if they have auxins, this plant is actually called a wandering Jew, pretty easy to propagate. So auxins promote adventitious root growth. Natural and synthetic varieties are available. You can do powdered or liquid form, and there's a quick dip method. So basically they took a cutting off this wandering Jew plant, they're going to dip it in the auxin, and they're going to put it in soil to get it to root. Cytokines, these are essential to cellular division. High auxin to cytokinin ratio equal higher root and adventitious root development. There's a high concentration of both will equal callus formation. And then you have your career connection. So they have horticulture illustrator. Basically, if you like art and you like plants, boom, that's the thing for you. But this, you could do stuff with textbooks, even websites, journals. They're going to find the correct pictures of plants to include and publish. And then this one, they have nursery inspector. So there's actually people that go through and inspect greenhouses, nurseries. They look at the production and sale of the nursery stock. They also inspect plant material that's going to be sold. It has to comply with the state agricultural rules, and they're going to work with that agricultural department. So kind of cool stuff. This one, they would definitely need a degree in agriculture. If you like the horticulture illustrator, you should have some sort of background in art. You wouldn't necessarily need a degree. Obviously, you'd need to like plants. So that is your chapter 14, stem and leaf propagation. So we will see you next time.